So I'm going to share my screen and share this video. This big. And I hope you can hear it. Hold on, hold on.
The humble acorn, not something we even pay attention to anymore. We don't even notice it there on the ground. We just leave it there to disappear of its own, or perhaps we sweep it up with the leaves when we're tidying up our yards. But to the Nisenan people who once lived here in this valley, they called Kaluma, this acorn represented life itself. This is a piece of bread. This is the difference between hunger and happiness. The Nisenan people had no agriculture. They raised no crops at all. They were what anthropologists call hunter-gatherers. And they were able to hunt and gather a great deal and a great variety of food here in California, so much so that some authorities believe that the population of California, the population density, was greater than any other place in this continent, north of central Mexico. But among all those foods that they gathered, the acorn was the most essential, the main source of nourishment. This was the staff of life itself, the very thing that was possible here in these hills. In its natural state, the acorn is so sour, it's edible. Wild animals have to eat it anyway. They just have to endure the taste of the tannic acid in their mouth and what it might do in their digestive system. But when human beings arrived here some 12,000 years ago, they quickly discovered that it's simple to remove the tannic acid because it's water. Then the people would cook the acorn. They used baskets as pots and hot rocks as fire. They dropped heated rocks into baskets full of wet acorn mush, stirred the rocks inside the basket with sticks, kept the rocks moving so that the basket wouldn't burn on the inside, brought the whole thing to a roiling boil and cooked it a while, and when they thought it was done, they stopped the process. And as soon as the mash cooled, it was ready to eat. Meanwhile, the acorns could be stored in pantries made of cedar branches, designed in a way that kept out both the wild animals and the rain. Without the acorn, life would have been so uncertain, filled with the worry of finding sustenance to sustain life, filled with terror of not knowing where your next food is coming from. But with the acorn, you could lead a life of safety, a life even of prosperity, a life of satisfaction, and food in your belly and joy in your heart. Lead a good life and a happy life and a healthy life and raise healthy children. And at the end of each day, walk down to the communal roundhouse and enjoy a good laugh with your fellows.
All right, so see how he tied a lot of those, tied a lot of the universal concepts into there about a happy life and having food to eat and the security of knowing you had food. Tying all that in so that, because we can all relate to that. We can all relate to being hungry. We can all relate to, oh, wow, where am I going to get my next, well, most of us probably can't, but in reality, most of us probably can't. That's a good thing, but how he relates that to these human needs that we have, and so that it gets you thinking about, oh, I mean, it's an acorn. You kick it in the, you trip over or you stumble on them in the fall, right? But you don't really think much about them. But he brought that up and how the natives used it and how important it was to their well-being. So that's kind of what we're trying to do is bring all those things in and bring those universal concepts in so that people start relating to what we're talking about a little bit more and start thinking about, oh, wow, if there weren't acorns, then they wouldn't have had something to eat, or what did they really eat? Or how did they make that taste good? Or what did they do with it? That kind of thing. So that's kind of what we're trying to look for when we're doing these presentations. So I think I muted you all. So if you have something to say, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. Um, but did anybody have any questions, comments on that?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
When they cooked that acorn mush, was it like polenta?
I believe it was kind of like an oatmeal or yeah, probably like a polenta. They used it lots of different ways. Sometimes it was like a watery soup. Sometimes they would make it into little bread cakes. So it was they used it a lot of different ways.
Roger, tell them about making acorn mush. Roger has cooked with acorns.
Oh, yeah?
We have lots of acorns around. I haven't gotten around to it, but the other interesting thing is they said that buckeye nuts are also edible, and we have tons of buckeye nuts, but you have to roast them. But Roger's cooked with them.
Yeah, what I did is I broke them, took them out of their shells, and then I kind of semi broke them, not real fine. Then I put them in water, let them soak, and I would taste them after a week, and they were still bitter. After 2 weeks, they were getting better. Finally, after about 3 weeks, that tannic acid or whatever the tartness was gone. So I dried them. Actually, I dried them in a smoker, so it actually had a smoke flavor. But then I ground them into flour, and I added it to my bread recipe. So I went 50-50 with acorn flour and white flour, and made rolls out of it. And it actually, you could taste a little bit of the smoke flavor, but it actually tasted pretty good. It wasn't, it's pretty bland, almost like flour. So there's really not a lot of flavor to it, but it'll keep you alive. So anyway, that was what I did with it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, those acorns have a lot of different nutrients in them, so they were very good food for the Native Americans. And if we wanted to go to the trouble, they could be our good food for us too, I guess. But we had a lot of them last year. There was a bumper crop in the fall. So at this point, I was going to talk a little bit more about developing an interpretive program, and this kind of talks about when you're out there and ways to better connect with visitors, except that I didn't queue that up for myself, so I have to go look for it. So bear with me for a second. All right. Oh, except I can't do that yet. Let me share my screen. Okay. So developing an interpretive program, connecting with visitors through your attitude, your speech, the mechanics and the physical layout of your interpretive area. So these are all just things to think about when you are setting something up and out there working with people. You want to create a welcoming environment, and a lot of that you can do through your poise. This shows that you are knowledgeable and comfortable in your role. That type of confidence has a magnetic effect on visitors. It shows that you are willing and available to interact with them to maximize their enjoyment of the experience. So if you're out there, you got to be confident about what you are there for, and be welcoming. People are going to actually want to come up to you and find out what you have to tell them. Of course, one thing that's key to that is to make eye contact with visitors as they pass by. If you're working on some handiwork or you're blacksmithing or whatever you're doing, people walk in, you want to look up and make eye contact with them and greet them, to welcome them into your space. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it's kind of, the people are kind of like, well, do they, should I talk to that person? Should I interrupt them? And of course, we do want to talk to them. We want to share what we have with them. Have confidence in what you're presenting. This doesn't mean that you are being a know-it-all. That kind of radiates in a bad way. But if you have confidence that comes from practice and experience, so the more comfortable you are with the information you are sharing, the easier, the more confident you're going to be in presenting it. And if you don't have confidence, just act like you do. Okay.
Make it till you make it.
Right, exactly. Remember that you probably know more than most of the people in your group. And if you're scared, look at your audience and think, I know more than you do. And let them sense your confidence. The goal is to communicate why this historic site or historic subject is significant. So leave yourself and your personal opinions on controversial subjects at home. And we did talk about that before. They didn't come here to hear about your opinions. They came here to hear about the historical significance of our site, and the history of our site and the importance of the gold rush and the things that are here at this park. You are the historic site so far as visitors are concerned. So you can make or break a visitor's interest in the subject depending on how you give that information out. So be confident, make eye contact, be friendly, and present the facts as best we can. So we also, along with that, make yourself available. Be sure that your body language and facial expressions communicate that you are open and approachable. Again, if you're working on something, look up, greet people, ask them how they are, ask them where they're coming from. That's always a really fun question because we get people from all over the world here. So it's always fun to hear where people are from. It always amazes me that people come to this little tiny town in the middle of, almost in the middle of nowhere from all over the world. And I'm always asking people, it's like, why did you come here? But it is a big draw for people from everywhere. If you are out there, a lot of times this happens in living history. We're out there with a bunch of other living history interpreters and there's nobody around. So everybody starts talking, catching up on things, and standing around in groups. But if that happens and you see visitors walk up, please break that up and pay attention to the visitors. Go back to your station, talk about what you are there to talk about. And be welcoming to the visitors because people aren't going to, usually they aren't comfortable approaching a group of people who are having a conversation. And we don't want them to we want to talk to them. We don't want them to feel uncomfortable asking us questions. Do something. If you're out in the park, doing something, keep yourself busy, a simple craft, a period chore. You're creating a casual environment that invites visitors to approach you and ask, hey, what are you doing? So for those who are too timid to strike up a conversation, take the initiative to start the conversation. So a lot of times people will just come up and kind of look at you and kind of shyly try to see what you're doing. If they don't ask you, ask them again, ask them where they're from, greet them, say, hey, how are you today? Glad you came out. I'm working on XYZ. Just kind of strike up a conversation to get them involved, more involved. Don't just wait for them to ask, because some people are too shy to ask. People are less threatened by us when we're sitting down, and they are more likely to come over to see what we're doing. So if you actually are doing something and you start to get a big group around you, get up and stand up so that you can direct your presentation to everybody in the crowd. Because if you got too big of a crowd, the people in the back aren't going to be able to see or hear what you're saying. If you have kind of a rote presentation where you start from A, you go to B, you go to C, and you're in the middle of it and a bunch of people walk up, complete the first talk for the people who are there to start with. And then as those people kind of wander off, start up again and ask the new folks to step up closer so they can hear your presentation again. You want to kind of change your interpretation up a bit every time. And the reason for this is if you memorize a talk, and then all of a sudden somebody in the middle of it asks you a question or interrupts you, if it's all memorized, you're going to be like, oh gosh, where was I? Where do I start? Oh, I have to start all at the beginning because this is how it goes. But if you just know the information and kind of have a casual presentation that you change up a little bit every time, or even change it up depending on the audience you have, then it's going to be a lot easier for you if you do have interruptions, because then you can just kind of go, okay, well, I was about here, and so I'll just continue with this. Or you may even realize that you need to skip part of it because the audience is not interested in the whole 20-minute presentation. They want like 10 minutes worth. So just have that flexibility to change it up or have interruptions, or you may actually even go down a different way. You may start out and someone will ask you a question that takes you right down a different road. So just have that flexibility. The more you
Kind of read
know,
the room.
yep, read the room, exactly. The more you know, the more facts and the information that you know, the easier it is to kind of switch things up and make it work for the people that you're talking to. We want to talk to people, not at them. So have a short and a long version of your program. Start with a short talk and read the body language of your audience. If they're in there for the long haul and they're looking at you, or are they in it for the long haul, or are they looking at their watch and ready to move on to something else? When your audience is stepping closer with curious eyes, asking questions, make it longer, go into more detail, ask them, if they have questions, or move into some other aspect of what you're talking about. So the big thing is read your crowd and adjust your audience accordingly. A lot of times if you're in the park roaming around, people will stop you to ask you questions. Sometimes all they want to know is where's the trailhead or where's the bathroom. So figure out what they're looking for before you launch into some dissertation and just read the room. Keep some of your information for questions. Don't immediately tell everything. Kind of leave some things hanging so people can ask you questions. They like to ask questions, and sometimes they come up with some really good ones. And again, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, if you don't know an answer. Sometimes you can point them to somebody else who might know the answer. Or sometimes it's just better to say, you know, I really don't know. I'm gonna have to research that. But we want to give accurate information. We don't want to be making up stuff just to give them an answer. If you're in the middle of a talk and you make a mistake, say so and laugh it off. Visitors can identify with someone who is human and makes mistakes. So if you don't know an answer, again, it's okay to say, I don't know. Make your setting visitor friendly. A lot of these are pictures from our living history. I'm not suggesting that you all have to do living history. It's just that's one of the things that fits well with actually all the things I'm telling you, but but you can have other kinds of presentations out here that are not living history, and all of this information can be helpful in that too. So be aware of the physical arrangement of your interpretation area. There should be a plan for easy visitor flow through your program's entire setting. Work to eliminate any dead ends or bottlenecks in your plan. So like in Gold Rush Live, sometimes people will have a space where visitors can walk into it. Make sure that if they walk into it, there's a way for them to walk out of it if there are people coming in behind them. So we just want to make sure that there's traffic flow, that people can get in and out and don't feel like they're trapped in a space. Another good thing to think about is if you want to have some kind of a barrier to separate the visitors from your interpretive area. Be creative and make that barrier part of your display. And sometimes we want to do that because if we have a lot of our own stuff there and we don't want people touching it, we want to keep them out of the area. Or if we're doing something that could be potentially dangerous, especially to small kids, we want to make sure that we keep visitors out of that because we want to keep everybody safe. Arrange your activity area from the visitor's point of view. So the visitor, for example, if there's something on your table that could be read, if you have a period newspaper on the table, set it up so that they could read it if they come up to your space. Set up whatever displays you have so that it's set up for the visitors to look at it, not so that you can look at it because you know what it is. Doesn't matter if you look at it. A common mistake is just to display too many items in a limited space, and then the visitor's eyes will glaze over this jumble of items. So display limited number of carefully chosen items for visitors to see. And I know I've done that, not that this is an interpretive space, but if you go to a flea market or something and people have had their tables just covered with stuff, you don't want to really stop and look at that. It's just like too much, right? So think of that when you are putting out your displays, an interpretive display as well.
Jerry, Sandra here. I'm wondering, do you supply the tables or do we get our own tables for display?
We have a limited number of tables such as the one in this picture here. And we have, but some people bring their own tables. So yes and no. So hands-on demonstrations. Most people learn more quickly with a more lasting impression if they can do an activity. And this is especially true with kids. So many times kids are told that they're not supposed to touch things. So when they're actually able to participate in a hands-on activity, it really leaves a lasting impression for them. You want to, of course, use keen judgment and be certain that all participants are informed of your program's policies. Obviously, you don't let people handle objects that can hurt them. And you also want to make sure that if you are using your, well, even if it's the parks, we want to make sure that things don't get broken or stolen or are harmful to the visitors. Hands-on activities are a dynamic addition to an interpretive program and should be supervised by responsible individuals at all times. So if you are going to do some kind of a hands-on activity, make sure that you can control it. If you need help with doing it, team up with somebody else to do it so that everybody gets the best value out of it. If you are going to be speaking to a crowd, which we do quite a bit, actually, most of our Eureka programs are you're all going to be speaking to a crowd. If you're on the tour, if you're at the wagons, pokes, the panning, you're all going to be talking to a larger group of people. The larger the audience, the louder and more clearly you should speak. Take a deep breath and slow down the tempo of your speech. If you are in the middle of a group, make sure that you're turning from side to side and looking at everyone in the group and not just focusing on who's ever right in front of you. And also try to make eye contact with the majority of your audience at one time or another. You want to speak in a natural, informal way, and never in a sing-song cadence. Again, part of that happens if you've got something you've memorized, and then it's more likely to come off as a da 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 because you've got your routine there. Try to give the impression that you just happen to think of a particular point that visitors might enjoy hearing about. So try to make it seem informal, even though it is probably a rehearsed program. So those are just some tips that we have for giving different programs. Again, the whole idea is to make this as enjoyable as possible for you and for the visitors. And that's it. We want to have fun. So, does anybody have any questions on any of that? No
I do
questions?
not. No
I did
questions.
such a great job. You have no questions? All right.
Do you have copies of your PowerPoint? we
Yeah,
have?
some of those are in the book. I don't remember if I put that one in there or not.
That one's not in. The one from last week is,
Okay.
or last class.
Yeah. All right. Well, I make notes. I have notes all over my desk because I don't remember anything.
Okay. I'll ask you again on Saturday.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Jerry,
Uh-huh.
when in the summer, do you get crowds in the summer with the heat here? Or are the crowds mostly fall and spring?
We do have people in the summer because we have, like I said, we'll have people coming from all over the world or around the country. And if they're on vacation, they're not gonna not come out because it's 105. But we do limit the programs that we do when it's that hot. When it gets over a certain, what is it, like 95, I think, we don't give the walking tours. We do the panning until it gets a little hotter than that because we have misters over there. So it's not, and it's in the shade, so it's not so unbearable. But we do have people here all summer. Like I said, people are on vacation. They're not gonna not come out here because this is the only chance they have.
The
Jerry,
previous- Go ahead.
this is Kathleen.
Uh-huh.
This Saturday, you said we are going to talk about clothing, clothing as in period correct clothing.
Yes.
And will we be able to take a look at, I think I was told that there's some items that we could use from a common collection of them. Would we be able to take a look at those on Saturday?
We can, yeah, we can probably do that.
We don't wear our clothes though, our period clothes on Saturday. We just come
No,
to.
just come as you are, or
Okay.
come in, yeah, regular clothes,
All right.
21st century clothes.
Yeah. So I think I can say pretty much that I'm not gonna be a candidate for sewing my own outfit.
Okay,
And so if I can't find something appropriate to wear, then I just won't do a dress up docent program. And so I know that there's lots of other things to choose from. But are there other ways to, like, I know that it could be pretty very specific of what's okay to wear if you're going to do the dressing up part.
uh-huh.
And then other times in other programs, it's not as persnickety, shall I say. So where are we gonna fall in terms of what we do? What is your expectation for us in that way?
Well, I would like everyone to be as period accurate as they can with their clothing, because during our living history, or even, well, with the kids programs, we usually would like people to do period clothing. I'm not as, I hate to say that. We're not as strict with that, although I really don't like to lower the standard, because then you've lowered the standard.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but for the living history, I really would like it to be as accurate as possible.
Okay.
I have a question about that. So, I mean, I could go either way and I can sew, but I'm just thinking that there weren't a whole lot of old women there. So, you know, as an older woman, would it just be more appropriate to not wear period clothes and wear, you know, the vest or shirt or whatever? You
Well,
get my point?
I get your point, and that is a conundrum that we have here, because usually pretty much most of the people who come out and do our living history and do our Gold Rush Live probably would have been dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Interesting.
we aren't accurate with our age, and so don't think that you can't do it because you're older. Because
Well, and also there weren't that many women there.
no, yeah. So in terms of
I
age,
mean, like, I probably shouldn't be at the blacksmith shop, for instance.
in terms of age demographic and gender demographic, we really aren't accurate, but we're over that. We can't, I can't change that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have anybody out here doing this. So I'm not going to worry about.
Okay, good to know.
Is
And in
there?
our,
Go
If
ahead,
you
Jerry.
come out to some of the living history things, you'll see that there's a lot of older ladies and gentlemen, you know, that probably aren't period correct in their age, but they dress the part and have a lot of fun.
No,
yeah,
I understand that. I've been there. I'm saying that's not period accurate in and of itself, because there were not very many old women there.
no, it's not, that part is not accurate of what we do, but it is
But
what
at least they are people talking that look appropriate, right?
yes,
So
yes.
You do the best you
Do
can.
they still
Yeah.
sell dresses at the mercantile?
Yeah, she does have some dresses there, and I have, well, I need to check with her, but there is a woman who might be available to make dresses if you're not a seamstress. So. Does anyone have any other questions on that? And like I said, a lot of what I just went over, that I showed a lot of living history pictures, but all those techniques can be used without living history. If you're out there doing something else, or if you're on a tour, or even doing gold panning, all those techniques apply to any kind of interpretation, any kind of program that you're doing for the visitors. So
You
don't
don't
feel,
need, you don't need to be period correct for gold panning or that?
when we do it with the public, we don't. We just usually are just in well, we're in our uniforms, but volunteers will come out and they'll use their they'll wear their volunteer shirts. So
I do have a question about that. So if I'm volunteering in the library, I don't need to dress up, right?
oh heck no.
Okay.
No,
I'm
not at all.
I'm not that kind of dress up kind of girl.
No.
Okay, very good.
Well, we have people who work in the museum and give tours regularly to the public. They don't dress up. We have people who open the houses, and because most of the houses are not from the 1850 time period, people don't dress up for those. Unless you want to go buy, if you want to go put together a 1920s outfit or a 1898 outfit or something like that. But because most of the living history due here is around 1848, 1850, and that's what people have, we don't expect everybody to have 3 or 4 different time periods of clothing if they want to open a building. So,
And when would be the best time to go to, I guess, the volunteer center to get the shirts and stuff like that?
You can get the shirts in the Mercantile, and they are open every day from 10 to 4.
Okay, so and so like on a Saturday when
Yep.
we're there?
Yep, they'll be there on Saturday, yeah.
I don't think I've been to
Carrie?
the Mercantile.
In looking through the binder that you gave us, is there a place in it that talks about the houses and the history in about the houses? Like there was that handout for the house tours at Christmas in Coloma. Is there anything in our manual?
I didn't put that in the manual. I think we still have copies of that from Christmas that I could give you, but that's very limited information on the house. It's a very basic, gives you the year it was
Right.
built and who lived there and stuff like that. I can
Right.
print those out and get those to you on Saturday.
Okay, yeah, that would be good. That just kind of gives you a starter.
Yeah. And then if somebody's more interested in a particular building, for most of them, I have more information than I could give you.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Could you print out that one on the Gooch Moore house? That I found to be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And are there certain houses that are open more often and are more frequented? And like I know you did the schoolhouse for Christmas in Coloma, because that is a further distance to walk. Does that get visited less often?
Well, at this point, we don't have buildings open very often, and it's just a matter of we haven't gotten the volunteers to do it. However, what I would like to do this spring when we have the kids coming and then into the summer is to actually schedule people regularly to be in those houses. And the ones that I would like to have open the most are the ones right along Main Street, which is the schoolhouse, the Monroe House, the Pepina House, the
Post office, Weller.
the old post office. The Weller House we don't usually open except at Christmas because it's actually our kind of our volunteer center.
Oh,
Which I
okay.
told you that if you guys are here volunteering, there's a refrigerator over there and microwave and stuff. And if you're here for the day or whatever, you can put your stuff in there and go in there and have lunch. Or, if you just need to get away, you need to cool off, it's air conditioned in there. That is open for our volunteers.
So for
So
school tours, the kids will actually have time to go to the houses?
a lot of times they do, they'll come out and do, panning. They'll come out at 10. They'll have maybe panning to do or a tour or whatever. And then they'll have their lunch period. And then maybe they'll have an hour before the bus picks them up. So there is time. And we also have other groups that come through here, other local tour groups that come to our park and bring their kids over here. So they're always looking for things to be open as well. So during school season, you probably will get a lot of kids going through there and get a lot of visitors. And even on the weekends, if we have it open and the weather's nice, people love to have those buildings open. And actually, when you're driving down 49 and you see all these buildings open, then it's like, whoa, there's something going on here. We need to stop. So
Yeah, yeah. I was just curious, especially about the schoolhouse being further down, it's not that much of a walk, but just curious if because it's not right tucked in with all the other buildings, if maybe it didn't get visited, even if it was open just as often.
well, and what we do too, when we have things open in the museum, there's a board right behind the desk there that they put up on there. We've got tours at this time, we have gold panning at this time, the blacksmith shop's open, this building's open, this building's open. So when people go into the museum, they can see what's open, and the people there will say, hey, you can get down to the schoolhouse, it's open today. The other bonus with the schoolhouse is they have the bell down there. So if you keep ringing the bell, down to see what's going on.
Okay. Very good.
If we work in the Gooch House, can we still be in 1850s or 60s clothes and not be wrong, even though it's a more modern house?
Well, people have done that. That house wasn't built till the 1920s. So when we do it at Christmas, we ask that people wear something from the 1920s, or just wear a t-shirt, volunteer t-shirt and regular clothes.
Will we be going through the Oddfellow building?
We don't usually, but we could. Well, I can take you. I don't know if we can go upstairs in there. We could just go into the lower part of that. On the last Saturday, the 24th, we're going to do the house tour. So we're going to try to get to all the houses so that you can at least see what they are. And I'll do my best to tell you about them. So,
What about the cemeteries? Is anyone ever interested in the cemeteries?
I have not had any docents take people up there. Some people are interested in cemeteries. We used to have a group called the Cemetery Players and I don't think they really did it in the cemetery though, but they went and found people who were buried there and then researched them, and then they would give a presentation about that person. They've done it at Gold Rush Live. They didn't do it last year, but I don't know if they really did it in the cemetery. We haven't done any programs in the cemetery in a long time.
Have they done the cemetery on Find a Grave so that the pictures of the graves are available?
There are some of the graves on Find a Grave. I don't know that we've done any of that, but I know Texas Ellen is on there.
I saw that. Yeah. And it said that it was haunted. Coloma is haunted as well.
Oh, well, yeah, there's all kinds of stories about things being haunted.
Everything's haunted.
Everything's
just-
haunted.
I've always been interested in, there's a lot of history in cemeteries.
Oh, yeah, I love to go
So,
to cemeteries.
yeah. So
I mean,
could I look into doing something
yeah,
around that?
yeah. We could look at doing some kind of a cemetery tour.
Dick Williams
Yeah.
said that there was some Mormon battalion folks buried, at least one that was buried in there, I think.
Oh.
Well, Nathaniel Hawk is in there, and I know
Yeah,
he,
that one.
yeah, he's in the Pioneer Cemetery.
What
I
about
know that
going-
oh,
Go
years
ahead.
ago, there used to be, it seems to me that there were like special cemetery tours that you signed up for, and I don't know if there was, a special group of people who became learned about the cemetery and they're just not doing it anymore, but it would be really interesting to bring that back.
Well, it's
Okay.
just like I said, there's a lot of history, and then it's a way to bring those people to life.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what the cemetery players were trying to do as well.
Mm.
Yeah, El Dorado County has a group that's actually sponsored by the county that helps maintain the cemeteries. They have a program called Save the Graves, and they do it, the reenactments.
It's at Halloween time.
Yeah, correct. And it's up at the primary one is up at the Placerville Cemetery, the Union Cemetery in Placerville.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a group there.
Mike Roberts is the guy to talk about that.
Exactly, Mike Roberts, exactly right. Yeah. And Bill Ty is author of some literature, histories of rescue and stuff, and he's done cemetery tours in the past where he rents a shuttle bus and takes around the different places. I don't know if he's still doing that right now or not.
Well, we can certainly look at putting together some kind of a program at the cemetery. That's not off the table.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I know it
History.
sounds a little morbid, but it's also a lot of good history.
Oh, yeah.
Like we were
People
saying,
love that stuff.
cemetery is nothing but history.
That's
Right.
exactly right. And just, like the date range of when people were buried there, and looking at family groups and who's buried next to it. It's just all very interesting.
Mhm.
Is there anything written up about who's buried there, or would Find a Grave be the best place to find that? I know they've got in the hundreds
We
on
have
Find a Grave.
we
Just
have
find a great. Go ahead.
booklet somewhere that's got information on a lot of the grave, not a lot, but quite a few graves.
Some of them.
Yeah,
Is that in the library or
Mm-hmm.
online?
probably in the library.
So it'd be good to ask the librarian about
Yeah.
that, maybe.
Find a Grave itself is a website, and it
Oh,
does
yeah,
cemeteries all around the
Yeah,
country.
Find a Graves
I-
is really good about finding people, not necessarily finding a list of people for a particular cemetery.
Well, no, but you can see the list of the people. I went and looked at it a couple of days ago. For genealogy, I find my ancestors on Find a Grave all the time.
Yeah, no, I've seen it before. I just haven't seen where you can get a list of people from a specific cemetery versus just going by names.
Well, it's not, there's a search, but then you can also, in kind of a roundabout way, you can get to the
Okay,
names
yeah,
of all the
yeah.
people that are there. I know it's usually people are looking for
Specific.
an
Individual.
ancestor but I think more and more it's being used just to understand cemeteries. Anyway, enough about that.
Are we gonna see Marshall's house?
Yes, we'll do that
Okay.
on the 24th.
Okay.
So wear your hiking shoes, because we're gonna be walking all over the park. Any other questions or comments?
So you didn't mention Thomas House. Is that one you're interested in opening as well?
Not at this time because it
Okay.
takes a lot of work right now.
Okay, gotcha.
Do we
Yeah, I
have
thought,
an assignment for the end? I forgot what our assignment was.
Well, I would like you to put together an interpretive outline similar to what's in your book, with a theme and then the objectives of your so that if you were going to do a program, and just kind of cutting out the research part of it, so you don't have to do a lot of the research, but put together, come up with a subject or what you want to talk about, put together a theme. What would your audience be? What would be the objective? What do you want them to know when they're done with your talk, that kind of a thing. And there's an example outline in your books in the section with interpretation. Yeah, the one that says example at the top. Exactly.
And you want it formatted like this with the bold objectives and stuff like that? Or
Yeah.
in this general idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? So I had one other video I was going to show you. It's on the importance of being period correct, which is kind of leads into what we're going to be talking about on Saturday. So if there's no other comments, I'm going to go right to that.
Hello, my name is Alan Fuller. I want to talk to you today about period correctness. And as I'm sure you know, period correctness simply means that in a historic exhibit, which is being attended by the general public, the artifacts and the costumes and the tools and the materials will all be accurate to the period that's being portrayed. So for example, if we're doing a historic event in Coloma, 1852, the things that are seen in that exhibit will be more or less from the year 1852. They'll be accurate and they'll be acceptable. Now, obviously, that's going to be only partly possible because there are always a lot of modern intrusions, particularly in a park like this with a highway running right through the middle of everything. You can't shut out the noise of the traffic. You can't shut out the people walking by with picnic baskets or modern garish clothing or any kind of modern intrusions. You'll hear the airplanes going over. And of course, it won't be possible to control any of that. So you may wonder, well, why do we bother to control any of it then? Why is it even possible to conduct a historic exhibit in a situation like that? And the answer is something professionals call a suspension of disbelief. And it's something we human beings do automatically and gladly and very willingly and always have. And if you think about it enough, you'll realize that we do it all the time. We do it even in social situations. We don't allow ourselves to indulge in much skepticism about things if there's no point to it. You see, so if you go to a play, say, and you see these people come out on the stage and they're portraying a scene from, I don't know, a Shakespearean scene from that period. They'll be dressed in costumes and all that, but you won't think, wow, wait a minute, that's just a modern stage. Those aren't real people up there. Of course, nobody bothers doing that. But instead, we suspend our disbelief and we willingly allow ourselves to be drawn into the scene and into the play, into the story, and into the plot. The same thing happens when we go to a movie. We don't think about light being projected onto a blank screen. We willingly watch a television program and become engaged with the story without thinking of the machinery. A magic show is another good example. We all know that the magician is just playing tricks on us. We all know he has some secret way of, he has some secret spring hidden in his wrist, that makes the thing work. But we don't think about that. We enjoy the trick and we laugh. And Well, the point is in all of this, whether it's a historic scene or a magic show or a video game or a puppet show, we suspend our cynicism, we suspend our skepticism. We all participate willingly, gladly. We ignore reality. It's a very human thing to do. And we all love to do it. And there's one other thing, though. We kind of get disappointed and even a little bit resentful when it's spoiled for us. Right? So, for example, think of the Shakespearean play that I mentioned. So what's being portrayed is late 16th century, perhaps. And everybody's in the right costume, and they even may have the right kind of walk and the right kind of talk. The props are all right. The audience is being carried back centuries to that medieval period. And one actor who has a smaller part and didn't practice enough and didn't think ahead walks out onto that stage wearing a digital watch on his wrist. It destroys the play. It ruins everybody's suspension of disbelief. Nobody can believe what just happened. Nobody pays any attention to the dialogue anymore or what's happening with the plot. They're all thinking, look at that guy on the stage wearing that digital watch. As all everybody can think about is that one little mistake. So we suspend our suspension of disbelief under those circumstances. The same thing might happen when a magic trick fails. You know, the little spring in the wrist breaks, perhaps, and the trick is revealed, and the joke is spoiled, and the magic show is destroyed. So there's a bit of indignation that sets in. People don't like it because they enjoy their suspension. They enjoy being carried away into a different place and a different time and a different set of people. And when something is done to destroy what's happening, it makes people resentful and indignant. So we ask you not to break that fragile spell. It seems a minor point, but it turns out it's not. And this has been a consistent problem in historic sites all across the country, for all I know, all around the world. When staff or docents or volunteers make a simple mistake that didn't need to be made, it has a very damaging effect on the whole scene. Now, for us, I'm not simply talking about first-person interpretation. I'm talking about third-person too. One of our historic events, for example, might be docents in costume demonstrating crafts or activities from the time period, but we're not in the time period. We're not saying, I do this activity on a daily basis. No, we're saying the people in the gold rush did it this way, and I'm going to show you how it was done in those days. Even under that circumstance, we need to have very accurate personal appearance. So what I'm talking about is the person themselves, the costume, the accessories, maybe what people are holding in their hand. Farther away from the personage, I think, the more leeway is allowed with historical inaccuracies. But a human being needs to be accurate. That, I think, is the point that I'm trying to make. Don't be misled by all the modern intrusions into the scene. It doesn't give the docents or the volunteers or the staff leeway to make any adjustments in the way they look, because the person themselves has to look correct. So you must take this seriously. There's been a lot of mistakes. I've made mistakes like that. We all have. Nobody's going to be too hard on you when you make your mistake, because we all have done it. I can tell you a mistake that I remember making, and I'm still kind of wince when I think of it. I was walking across the park here behind the museum into the historic tent town, and I heard the familiar voice of Miss M. She was kind of the docent leader in those days, very effective, very dynamic, and hardworking, and everybody loved her. But I heard the voice of Miss M, Alan! And I froze in place, and I looked down, and I was holding a styrofoam cup coffee's my drug. And I needed some coffee. I went to the Weller House. I knew that's where it was. You get coffee in the Weller House. What they had was styrofoam cups. Well, I had a tin cup back in my bag. I just didn't think of it or didn't bother. I don't remember what went through my foolish head, but I picked up a styrofoam cup of coffee and I came walking back into Tent Town with it. Big mistake, unnecessary, foolish, and not to do again. I can tell you another experience I recently had. I went down to one of the California missions on a day that they were having a historic demonstration. Well, no, it was first person interpretation that day. And they had, they had the Franciscan priest in brown robes. They had the captain of the guard. They had some Mexican soldiers. And they had some workers and laborers around the mission. They also had a number of people portraying the Indians, who, of course, were doing most of the work. And the one I want to tell you about, though, was the weaver. She was in the weaving shop, and she was telling visitors, including myself and my wife, when we went in there, she was telling us about how the blankets were made. She described shearing the sheep, washing the wool, carding, spinning the wool, and then finally the last step, weaving the wool onto a loom to make blankets. She described all this very well. She had really good speaking skills, very good presentation skills, very coherent, very enjoyable, and I learned a lot from her. And I didn't mind that she was portraying an Indian and yet had a European features, white skin, blonde hair. The costume was okay. I wasn't bothered by the costume. It was homespun, and I didn't pay much attention to it. The thing that caught my attention was those glasses. She was wearing a pair of modern glasses. I couldn't get past it. As good as she was, I could not get those glasses out of my mind, and I couldn't stop thinking, why is she wearing those glasses? Surely she's not so incapacitated that she couldn't do this without wearing glasses. I found it very, very distracting and very disappointing. As good as she was, it would have been at least twice as good without the glasses. So those are two simple examples. And like I said, we've all made them. What else can I tell you? When you're a docent in a historic scene, you're part of a bigger fabric, like the context of everything that's seen by the visitors when they come into the park. The museum, the various exhibit buildings, the historic structures, the mining equipment, the sawmill, the film in the museum. It's all part of a piece, right? It all works together to make a complete picture. And then when that visitor who's seen all those things walks into the historic town and sees you in your historic costume, you add to that context. And it reinforces what the visitor has seen and makes it better and makes it more complete and more understandable and gives the visitor a better experience. But when you make a mistake in costuming, it's going to have the exact opposite effect. Not only will it diminish your appearance, but it will diminish the validity of the rest of the context that they've seen that day in the park. I hope that makes sense. One other way of looking at this might be for you to consider just going out to dinner, maybe to a neighborhood party, maybe to an office party, where you want to look nice. You want to be presented to your friends in the correct visual way. So when you do that, you pay attention to everything on your person. A man might, for example, make sure that his belt is the same color as his shoes. And a woman might make sure that the jewelry she's wearing on her ears matches the costume or works with it, that the colors don't clash, the patterns don't clash or contrast too badly. So you pay attention for everything, from the top of your head down to the floor. You think about each aspect of your appearance before you go out. We would just like you to take that same approach when you do historic reenactment or historic interpretation of any kind, to pay attention to your complete costume and examine in your mind very quickly everything that you've got on, so that you don't wind up with one silly mistake, like something made out of plastic, for example. Completely unacceptable, just completely wrong. Everybody knows what plastic looks like, and everybody knows there was no plastic in the gold rush. So when you come to the park to do a historic reenactment of any kind, make sure your costume is going to work with the event. It's not about you. It's not about how you look. So don't even view it as a costume. View it as part of your kit, part of your tools, part of what you've memorized, part of the materials that you may be using to demonstrate. Don't just dress up. Don't enjoy the sensation of how it feels to wear something fun and different. Because if you go about it that way, you may be making a mistake. It's not play. It's very serious stuff. Everything you do is going to have an impact on everything else that's done. We're telling you all this today because it's so effective when it works. When everything comes together, everybody's costume is right, and the interpretations are right. The visitors' faces reflect the fact that everything is going right, and everybody feels better and better and better. It's just magical when it works. It's just wonderful when it works. And at the end of the day, everybody is just as pleased as can be and slapping each other on the back and saying, wasn't that fun? Gosh, we enjoyed that. That's what we want. We want everybody to have a good time. This is fun stuff. It's fun to interpret. It's fun to demonstrate. And it's fun for the visitors to come and see us work. So have fun with it and make sure you're part of everything. Thank you.
All right. So any comments on any of that?
Yes,
Yes.
glasses.
Yeah, I was going to say too, glasses.
Yeah,
I don't have any wireframe prescription glasses.
neither.
So I know that's a bugaboo. I get that.
I could probably get by with reading glasses with some wireframe readers, but I was just curious about that.
I can't get by without glasses, even readers. There have to be prescription.
there is a relatively inexpensive option for that with some of these online glasses places. They do have like the round wire frames that you can get your prescription put into.
My prescription's expensive. It is. It's
I know, I get it.
multifocal.
I get it. My son has a very expensive prescription as well. Yeah, we try to do the best we can with that. I understand that you have to see.
Yeah.
I want you to fall on your face while you're out here. So that one we just try to do the best we can on that. Like I said, there are some different options with depending on what your prescription is. I have a number of docents that have gotten these glasses. It's called Zini Optical. They're pretty inexpensive for normal prescriptions. So yeah, we'll just work with what we can on that.
What about shoes?
Shoes, there are a number of different places that you can get shoes. There can be some different inexpensive options. There are a bunch of websites listed in the back of, or in one of the sections of your notebook where you can look at different articles of clothing and shoes and things like that. We're going to talk a lot more about that stuff on Saturday. So hopefully we'll have some good answers for you then.
I just don't want to get kicked out of the program because I can't get glasses that are throw off the entire persona because I have the wrong glasses. It sounds like it's really serious.
Yeah, he's really serious about it. Honestly, we haven't been I mean, we haven't kicked anybody out because of their glasses. We just try to do the best we can.
Good.
Just wear a bonnet with a very high brim.
I'll be lucky to get a bonnet on.
Anything else? Well, then we will see you on Saturday. 9, what did I say? 9 o'clock at the museum. We'll be in the museum theater on Saturday, which is probably gonna be good because it's supposed to rain. So,
Notice that. So just go ahead and meet inside the theater then?
yes.
Okay.
When I saw the weather report and it looked like rain, no rain till around 2 o'clock.
Right,
Oh,
mostly in the afternoon.
Park,
Well-
park behind the Weller House again and get a parking pass.
Yes. Well, you
Parking
Well, I
can,
pass
think
is good.
our
Same
parking pass,
you can use the same pass that I gave you
It's
last.
through the end of the, it's through the end of the month, according to the
Yeah.
date on it.
Yep. Yeah, you can use the same pass.
That was another question.
And where do we obtain the parking passes from?
Well, when you get here, I'll give it to you.
Understood.
All right, well, that's it for this evening.
thank
and
you.
We'll see you on
Alrighty.
Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Bye-bye.
Okay.